Chicago's flag is a beloved celebrity in the Windy City, popping up everywhere from porches to water towers to the city's sport team's logos. But how was it saved by bureaucratic dysfunction, and what did a Ferris wheel, amoebic dysentery, and Christopher Columbus have to do with it? Grab a slice of deep dish pizza and sit tight, just don't get too light-footed, as we dive deep into the fascinating story about Chicago's flag and what a potential fifth star would look like. In 1892, the Chicago Tribune newspaper held a contest to design the city's flag. The winning design came from Danish architect Alfred Ravad. Shortly after that, Francis David Millet, who was an American painter and writer, proposed a version of Ravad's design. Millet later tragically dies on the Titanic in 1912, and although his flag was never officially approved by the city council, it did become widely used as an unofficial flag for the city of Chicago. Fast forward to 1917, the modern Chicago flag was created with two stars. They were squeezed into the pole side so that each city department can stitch their name into the side. But they ended up commissioning these patches to visually represent each department instead of writing the whole name, but this also didn't take off. Another star came in 1933 and a fourth one in 1939. So this is what Chicago's flag looks like today, but what does it all mean and what's the symbolism behind it? The top blue stripe stands for Lake Michigan and the northern branch of the Chicago River, while the bottom one stands for its southern branch and the Great Canal. The white stripes, however, symbolize Chicago's north, west, and south side regions, and each one of those four stars represents a significant event in Chicago's history. The first star on the left was added in 1939. It represents Fort Dearborn, which was an important United States military fort built in 1803. It was named after an important Revolutionary War officer, and it protected the region during the War of 1812. And aside from a small marker and a monument, nothing remains from that fort today. The second star was in the original 1917 flag. It stands for the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. This devastating blaze swept through the city for 2 days. It destroyed a large part of Chicago, and it killed 300 people and left around 30% of the residents without homes. And although that catastrophe resulted in significant loss of life and property, it kicked off a massive rebuilding effort that transformed Chicago into the modern metropolis that we know today, with improved building codes and firefighting techniques. The third star was in the original 1917 flag as well, and it celebrates the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893, when 27 million visitors came to Chicago to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival to the Americas. This big party had some cool attractions, like the world's first Ferris wheel invented by George Washington Gale Ferris Jr., and they also had life-size reproductions of Christopher Columbus's 3 ships that were constructed in Spain and sailed to the US specifically for this exposition. Closing ceremonies, however, were sadly canceled in favor of a public memorial service after the assassination of the popular mayor Carter Harrison Sr. in his home just 2 days before the closing ceremony. The fourth star was added for the Century of Progress exposition, and besides causing an amoebic dysentery outbreak from 2 hotels, it celebrated Chicago's centennial, and just like the one from 1893, this exposition featured some cool attractions and influenced Chicago's urban planning and architecture. Here's something I never thought I'd say. Bureaucratic dysfunction saved Chicago's flag from an awkward makeover back when it had 2 stars. The mayor back then pushed to swap the 6-pointed stars with 5-pointed ones in 1928 to make them more American-looking. The city council agreed with the change, but then they forgot to update the rulebook. So by 1933, 5 years later, when they ended up adding a 3rd star, the 6-pointed design was locked in for good, thanks to good old-fashioned paperwork neglect. Every now and then we get people wanting to add a 5th star. Some are more serious than others. Lori Lightfoot, for example, wanted to add one for her COVID response. A 5th star was also suggested for Chicago's role in the nuclear age in the 1960s, and in the 1980s, a star was proposed to honor Harold Washington, Chicago's first African-American mayor. Some even wanted a star for the 1992 Chicago flood, while others suggested it during the 2016 Olympics bid, which was later won by Rio. Today, the Chicago History Museum has an exhibition where you can vote for what you think the 5th star should be. Each point in those red 6-pointed stars, by the way, stands for something unique, like the entities that ruled over the area, Chicago's 6 nicknames and mottos, and some key pillars of society and public life in Chicago. This is basically the city's We Love Our Town banner, but it's one of many cool ones around the world. So check out this other cool video or browse the playlist for more flag videos. Don't forget to do all the YouTube things, and I will see you next time on Council of Knowledge.